Hello fellow modelers, this is P.J.C. 2.0 and this is part 3 of my Klingon battlecruiser build. Now, I've decided to go with the paint masking method that's always worked for me, especially when it comes to a complicated paint masking scheme. I'm just going to paint the model the main hull color, put the whole thing together, at least halfway, and then I'm just going to paint the individual panels, mask each one off one at a time, and then paint them the color I want them to be. Because making my own mask is proving to be more difficult than I thought. Now, remember in part 2 when I said if I found another type of base that looks like it'll work better than this dome base, I've decided that I'm not going to use it. I'm going to go with this wooden base that I got from Walmart, because it's hollow on the other side, as you can see, and it gives me plenty of room for the circuit boards and buttons and wiring. But first I have to drill out the hole for the mounting rod, and the best way I know to drill them out to where the holes will line up is to tape the emblem to the wooden base and drill them both out at the same time. Okay, so now I've gone ahead and drilled out the holes in the emblem and in the wooden base, and so far so good. They both line up real good. I've also drilled out the holes for the on and off switch, the effects buttons, and the power supply. So basically all I'm doing now is just giving it a real good coat of primer, and then I'm gonna paint the whole thing black. Now, I didn't mention this before, but the reason I'm using this wooden base is because it leaves room underneath the Klingon emblem for a nameplate. Now, I've decided to name the ship after a Klingon character that appeared in an episode of the original series, one episode of Deep Space Nine, and an episode of Star Trek Voyager. Now, the yellow hull panels in the picture you see on the left is what I'm trying to do here. Basically what I'm going to do is mask off the edge of each one of those hull panels with some masking tape. And once I think I've got those panels masked off good enough, I'm going to paint them with my airbrush. Now, originally I was going to paint those panels with this color, to me a dark yellow, but I've decided not to do that. Instead, I'm going to go with the yellow-green color, because after looking at that picture that you just saw a moment ago, this yellow-green color looks like it would be a better choice. Now I'm going to give it a good coat, then I'm going to let the paint dry for an hour or two, and then I'm going to come back and remove the masking and hope it turns out alright. Alright, now I'm just repeating the same masking process in order to get the look that you see in the picture on the left. I'm going to mask off the edges of the hull panels on this bridge piece, making sure that I cover up everything except what I want to paint. And then I'm just going to hope that it turns out alright, and will not require a whole lot of touch-up work. Alright, I've got the piece all masked off, and now I'm just giving it a coat of the yellow-green with my airbrush, and I'm going to give the other piece a second coat. Alright, I've let both pieces dry for at least 2 hours. Now I'm just removing the masking. So far so good. It turned out real nice on this back piece. Now let's remove the masking on the bridge piece, and let's see how it turned out. So far so good. Turned out real nice. It does need some touch-up in some places, but I can manage that with a paintbrush. Alright, now I've gone ahead and removed some of the masking tape on this underside piece. And I wasn't gonna cover up too many panels on this underside piece, just enough to make it look good. And while removing this masking, some of the paint did come off, but it's nothing that can't be touched up with a little brushwork. Alright, now I've glued on one of the nacelles, but unfortunately it's proving to have some issues. The main issue is mostly this gap that you see me putting glue in, this gap right here. And the only way I know to fix that is to put a piece of styrene in there to bridge the gap and just putty the heck out of it. Alright, now I'm gluing on the other nacelle, and I put this piece of tape on there to help hold it in place while the glue dries. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to set it down and leave it to dry for a good hour before I touch it again. And with all the hassle I'm having gluing these nacelles on, it looks like I'm going to have to add some epoxy glue in there to help hold these nacelles in place. Now here's a look at the pieces with all the masking off. And so far so good, they all turned out alright. Now I'm lightly going to dust over the NATO green hull panels with the main hull cover to try to lighten those panels up and blend them with the rest of the hull, and hope it turns out good. Unfortunately, the liquid masking in these vents didn't work out so well, so I had to take those clear plastic pieces out in order to clean them up. But as soon as I'm done with all this, I'm going to be putting them back in before I close the model up. Alright, here's the model back on the workbase, and I've let the glue and the nacelles dry for a good 2 hours. As you can see, I've already added some JB Weld 2-part epoxy to them. I'm hoping that's going to help hold the nacelles in place. Now what I'm doing is painting over the NATO green hull panels with a real light coat of the main hull cover. Using it like a blending coat, that way all these NATO green hull panels will blend with the rest of the model. And now that looks pretty good. I like it. I'm going to do the bottom half, and I'm going to set it down and let it dry. Then I'm going to do the same thing to this rear piece here. Then I'm going to put it aside and let it dry. Now I'm doing the top half of the model. Again, just lightly dusting over the NATO green panels. And this looks pretty good. You can still tell that some of the hull panels are slightly darker than the rest. And now it's time to move on to the bottom half of the model. Again, lightly dusting over with the main hull cover. And at the same time painting over the puttied seams. Okay, now these are the hull panels here that are going to get painted with the Tamiya yellow-green color. Also, some panels on the neck. Now, these hull panels here on the wings, top and bottom, as well as here on the head, top and bottom, are all going to get painted with this insignia red color. And when it comes to painting the bottom half, this artwork you see on the left is the only thing I have to go by, because I can't find any pictures of the filming miniatures bottom half. Now I'm just finishing up this top rear piece, putting the final paint job on it. Let's see how I did. Now that looks pretty good. I think I nailed the exact look that I wanted. Now the picture on the left is the look that I'm going for, and the only way I know to get this look is to mask off the individual panels that I want painted with the insignia red color. And I know this process is going to take me hours to do. And after doing some testing, I believe that this insignia red color is the right choice to use. It just matches up somewhat with what was... Okay, this little screw up is my fault. I painted the left side the wrong way. it's supposed to look like the right side here does. So now that means I'm going to have to paint over these three here, let the paint dry, then mask off the right panels, and hopefully I'll get it right this time. And I think I've nailed it. This looks almost exactly like what was in the picture on the left. And this took me about 3 hours to do, because some of these panels are in very tricky locations, like these rear ones. Those were very tricky to do. These white square ones, they were easy to do. But these rear panels, oh, they were very tricky. I'm just grateful they turned out alright. I've also cut some new clear pieces and put them inside these lighted vents. And I've glued them in with canopy glue. And here's a look at it all lit up. As you can see, the white nav strobes are working. I just haven't gotten the strobe circuit yet. The LED light strips are working. And I am just real happy with how this piece turned out. Now I gotta get to work on the bottom half and just hope that it turns out just as good as this top half has turned out. Now, when it comes to painting the yellow hull panels on the bottom half of this ship, this screenshot you see on the left is the only thing I have to go by. And this is from an episode of Deep Space Nine, and I don't know how well you can see it, but I can see those yellow panels pretty clearly. I see where they start and where they end. These first yellow panels took me 45 minutes to do, and mostly because I had to paint each one at a time, and it was very tricky. After 2 hours of work, all of these yellow hull panels are painted, and they all look good. They need some touch-up in some places, but nothing serious. And now it's time to get to work on the red hull panels. Now, this is going to take me a whole lot longer to do, because there are so many red hull panels than there are yellow ones. And the ones on the head are smaller than the ones on the wings. So this is going to take me a while. And I just want to take a second to say that all this detail I'm putting into this model is one of the reasons I think this model deserves to have a paint masking set made for it. I mean, there's just so much detail you can put into it. And I think a paint masking set would make this job a whole lot easier. And it reminds me of the Kronos 1-350 scale kit. Now there's a lot of paint work you gotta put into that model to make it look like Kronos 1. And there are paint masking sets for that, but there aren't any paint masking sets for this model. And I think there should be a paint masking set to help paint this model. It certainly would have made all this work I've had to put into this one worth the time. And certainly would have made all this painting a whole lot easier. And finally, after 3.5 hours of work, I am done painting the bottom half of this ship. And I think I did a pretty good job. Now the only painting I have left to do is the top half of the head. I gotta paint the red panels on that. Then solder together the remaining wiring. And then glue the top half on.